Russia just launched a massive assault on the Ukraine, hitting major cities with missiles. Now, what is alarming is that they're now using some missiles that the Ukraine is just now seeing for the first time. President Joe Biden has announced a $6.9 trillion budget for the year 2024, which aims to place hefty taxes on the rich while also lowering our deficit. Do you really think that this thing's going to pass? And do you think that the added taxes will really be imposed on the very wealthy instead of on the lower and middle class and middle income Americans? It would be crazy if more taxes were placed on us, right? But you know what else is crazy? Another Norfolk Southern train derailed in Alabama, the same day as their CEO testified in Congress about the derailment in Ohio. Isn't that nuts? Now, you also won't believe what their CEO said in Congress about taking accountability for the disaster in Ohio as they're ripped for their business practices. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has warned that the Fed may be unable to rescue the economy if Congress fails to raise the federal debt ceiling, saying that it can also lead to millions of layoffs across the country. Can any of us afford to lose our jobs tomorrow? Drop a quick comment, yes or no, down below. Now, before I begin, please take a second, smash the like button for the video. It really helps out a lot in getting this information out to the people. And if you're in need of your daily dose of the truth when it comes to what's really going on in Washington, D.C., the state of our economy, the housing market, stock market updates, Social Security, SSI, SSDI, and anything that will affect our lives, our families, and our bank accounts, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. And for the best way to invest in gold, there is a link in the description of this video down below. Now, guys, the CEO of Norfolk Southern, Alan Shaw, was recently grilled about the derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, one of the worst chemical spills in our history. Shaw was very apologetic and started by saying, quote, "I want to begin today by expressing how deeply sorry I am for the impact of this derailment on East Palestine and the surrounding communities," end quote. You know what? Before we go any further, anybody here from Ohio who wants to accept that apology? Evidently, the sorry wasn't good enough and some lawmakers were heated about this whole incident. So here's Senator Sherrod Brown talking about it.
If Norfolk Southern had paid a little more attention to safety and a little less attention to its profits, it cared a little more about the Ohioans along its tracks and a little less about its executives and shareholders, these accidents would not have been as bad or maybe not happened at all.
Senator Bernie Sanders also asked about how the company means to help the residents of East Palestine, Ohio.
You talked about covering the needs of the people of East Palestine. Does that include paying for their health care needs? All of their health care needs?
Senator, we're going to do what's right for the citizens of East
What's right is to cover their health care needs. Will you do that?
Everything is on the table, sir.
While this was all happening, another Norfolk Southern train derailed in Alabama. Now, just imagine testifying right before Congress about a train derailment, and on the very same day, another one happens. Wow. 2 of the 37 train cars were considered residue cars because they previously contained hazardous materials, but a spokesman for the company has already said that there was no leak this time and that there's no risk to the public. Their CEO was also asked if they would compensate people for possible long-term medical costs and economic damage, because you have to take into consideration that these hazardous materials won't affect them right away. Some may take years before they find out that they were affected by it. Shaw was very vague in his answer and did not specifically commit to helping the people of Ohio with long-term health costs. But what do you guys think about that? Now, speaking of costs, let's see what the president has to say about his proposed budget for 2024.
So my budget reflects what we can do to lift the burden on hardworking Americans. And there's more than one way to do that. And that's would bring us down to everyday cost. How much do things cost? It's not just whether inflation. We brought down inflation 7 months in a row. We're going to whip it.
The president also says that, quote, "To support working parents, my budget expands access to affordable childcare for millions of families, and it's going to invest in paid family medical leave," end quote. The budget is set at $6.9 trillion, one that he says would invest in critical issues in our country. It would increase the supply of affordable housing, lower rental costs, and make it easier to buy a house. To be clear, this could be the biggest federal government spending ever, and Biden aims to do it by taxing the rich. So here's what he had to say about it.
No billionaire should be paying a lower tax than somebody working as a school teacher or a firefighter or any of you in this room. So my plan is to make sure the corporations begin to pay their fair share. It used to be 35%. We cut it down to 21%. I think we should be paying 28%.
In a joint statement, Republican leaders were very critical about the budget. Quote, President Joe Biden's budget is a reckless proposal doubling down on the same far-left spending policies that have led to record inflation and our current debt crisis, end quote. Now, related to that, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell warned that the federal government needs to have the debt ceiling raised in order to meet its obligations. He also adds that the Fed won't be able to shield the economy from the consequences of failing to do this. They also warned of a debt default and the possibility of millions of layoffs across the country during a time where inflation is breathing down our necks and wallets. I don't think that more people losing their jobs would help. And in terms of help, Ukraine may need more as Russia just hit them with 81 missiles recently.
According to the Ukrainian Air Force, 81 missiles were fired in the early hours of Thursday morning, including 6 hypersonic missiles which can travel up to 8 kilometers a second. Ukraine said it intercepted 34 cruise missiles but doesn't have the ability to intercept the hypersonic missiles. 40% of Kyiv is now without power.
I heard a very loud explosion, very loud. We quickly jumped out of bed and saw one car on fire. Then the other cars caught on fire as well. The glass shattered on the balconies and windows. It's very frightening. The child got scared and jumped out of bed.
Rescue services have become accustomed to dealing with the aftermath of airstrikes.
Now, of those missiles, there were those with the ability to elude Kiev's air defenses. Now, a spokesperson for the Air Force Command of the country said this, quote, the attack is really large scale, and for the first time using such different types of missiles. We see that this time as many as 6 Kinzhal were used. This is an attack like I don't remember seeing before. So far, we have no capabilities to counter these weapons, end quote. This may be the nail in the coffin for the Ukraine. Now, their president, Vladimir Zelensky, is worried that their troops may have to withdraw from a very critical area in their country, which is Bakhmut. He said, quote, we understand that after Bakhmut, they could go further. They could go to Kramatorsk. It would be open for the Russians after Bakhmut to own other towns in the Ukraine in the Donetsk direction, end quote. Ukraine has said that they will defend the area, although Russia has been assaulting the eastern city for weeks now, and some say that capturing it may only be a matter of time. Could this be a sign for the United States to now send more weapons or just completely pull out? What are your thoughts on today's updates? Make sure to get into the conversation in the comment section below. And I know we talk a lot about this, but how are you guys doing with your budget? How are those credit card bills going? Are more of you making tougher decisions inside of Walmart and Target, having to choose between necessities? I know the story all too well, and this is exactly why we have our Patreon community down below. Now, if you want to learn more about side hustles and creating small businesses to develop multiple streams of income, or maybe you're an investor who wants to learn how to get into investing in real estate, stock market, feel free to join us in the Patreon community. And if you own a home, make sure your home is protected. Get your free home warranty quote. There's a link in the description down below. The path to financial freedom is not easy, but it's not impossible. Now, before I go, guys, please don't forget to drop a thumbs up for the video. Also, subscribe to the channel for your daily dose of the truth. Appreciate you guys watching. Please be kind to one another, and I will see you on the next video.